So in the last chapter, we learned how to solve an equation like x squared equals 4. This is a second degree polynomial. And so the first thing we always did was make this equal to 0, write it in standard form. X squared minus 4 is equal to 0. Once we have it equal to 0, then we factor this. And this is a difference of squares. So I can factor this as x minus 2 times x plus 2 is equal to 0. And then we can use the zero product property to set each factor equal to 0 and solve them so that, as expected, I get two different answers. X is equal to 2 and x is equal to negative 2. If I put either 2 or negative 2 in the original equation, I get an answer. And we've talked before about the fact when I have a second degree polynomial, a quadratic polynomial, I normally expect to get two answers. But there's a second way to solve this problem, and that is to take the square root of both sides. We've learned that squaring and square rooting are inverse operations. And so I can, if I want to, take the square root of both sides. But when I square root both sides, I need to remember that I'm going to get two answers. And so this actually becomes the square root of x squared is positive square root of 4, and the square root of x squared is negative square root of 4. And so that's why I get two different answers. X is 2 and x is negative 2. Now we're going to be using this idea of squaring both sides of an equation to square rooting both sides of an equation to solve something. But in the problems we're going to do, we're going to be able to ignore the negative number because we're going to be looking at the lengths of triangles. And obviously the length of a triangle can't be a negative number. So again, although the equation x squared equals 4 has two answers, we're going to be ignoring the negative answer because a triangle can't have a negative length. And the theorem that we're going to be using is the Pythagorean theorem. The Pythagorean theorem applies when I have right triangles. And when I know two of the three sides of a right triangle, the Pythagorean theorem, which is a squared plus b squared equals c squared, or the length of one leg squared plus the leg of a second leg squared equals the hypotenuse squared. If I know two of these numbers, I can use algebra to find the third. Now, this only applies when I'm looking at a right triangle. A right triangle is a triangle with a 90-degree angle. And the two sides of the triangle that are closest to the right angle, those sides are called legs. And the longest side of the triangle, which is across from the right angle, that is called the hypotenuse. We usually refer to the legs as A and B, and the hypotenuse as C. Let's do two practice problems together. The first problem, I know the length of both of the legs, and I don't know the hypotenuse. So this unknown, I'm going to give it the variable x. And so what I do know is the hypotenuse squared, or c squared, is equal to the first leg squared plus the second leg squared. 7 squared is 49, 5 squared is 25, so I can add those together. And then I can take the square root of both sides. Now when I do that normally I'd get two answers, a positive and negative square root of 74. But since we're talking about the length of something, I can ignore the negative answer, and I just know that x is the square root of 74. The last thing I try to do is simplify the square root of 74. But there are no perfect squares that go into 74. So that's my final answer. One more example. Here I know one of the legs, and I know the hypotenuse, but I don't know this side, so I'm going to give it the variable x. So I know 3 squared plus x squared is 5 to the second power. When I square this, 9, then I can subtract it from both sides, and I end up with x squared is equal to 16. And when I square root both sides, I find out that the length of this side is 4. So on the worksheet I sent you, you have 6 more problems. Go ahead and do those and then check your answers. And then try to do the word problem that's on the back. And again, I've sent you the answers to the word problem as well. If you have any questions, email me. I'll be around the house and I'll answer your emails. If there's a particular problem that's giving you a hard time, send me a picture of what you've done and I'll correct it for you.